Is your dog more reactive or aggressive in familiar spaces? This actually makes a lot of sense, especially if their behavior is being driven by fear or anxiety, as is the case with most reactive and aggressive behavior. By the time our dogs are behaving in a reactive or aggressive way, they are well beyond their therapeutic threshold. They're no longer trying to cope with the stressor, they are now trying to survive the stressor. And when mammals are in a survival situation, they very quickly, unconsciously synthesize all of the information they have available to them at the time to decide which survival response is most likely to get them out of this situation. Now, if mammals think they can flight, they will flight. But it's about perception. Do you perceive that you could safely flight your way out of this situation? If you can't, you might go to fight. And if you can't fight, then you might go into a freeze or a dissociated response because you're saying, active coping is not even an option, so we're just going to try to make this less painful. That decision is based on a lot of factors, including how familiar are you with the space you're in. You might feel more likely to flight or fight or fidget or fawn if you're in a familiar space. You're on even ground with the threat, or perhaps even have the upper hand because you know the environment, you know the terrain, so to speak. Actually, we also see this with people, safe people. Your dog might be louder, they might be more reactive in their fear and anxiety when they are surrounded by their safe people, versus when they're all alone and they stand much less of a chance of surviving that threat. And this is why your dog might be more reactive in the neighborhood than they are at a brand new park they've never been to before. Or this might be why your dog does fine when the vet takes them in the back, but will try to bite the vet if you're present in the exam room. Now, the answer to this is not to flood your dog with unfamiliar spaces or to leave them without social support in scary situations. Remember that behavior is a symptom. We're trying to get at the underlying emotion to help the dog actually feel better. Having safe places and safe people is vital to that process. Without safe places and safe connections, we don't feel better. That doesn't happen. But I often see that increase in reactive or aggressive behavior, or another way to put that is I often see when the dog opts for that fight mode and might flight or freeze or fidget or fawn in other situations, we can draw incorrect conclusions about the function of the behavior. Or worse, we might have a fundamental misunderstanding of survival responses and think, oh, well, my dog clearly can choose other options, they just aren't. But that's just not how survival responses work. They aren't a choice, but they are the brain brilliantly synthesizing information and deciding what is my best opportunity of surviving this. Our job is to keep our dogs out of situations that they have to think about survival in. And if that's shrinking their life or putting an unsustainable amount of work on the human or preventing us from doing things that the dog might otherwise enjoy doing, then we can come in with behavior therapy. But behavior therapy is kind of a misnomer because the behavior is just a symptom. I really am not that concerned with the behavior at all, beyond safety and beyond what it tells us about the dog. It's really much more about the emotion, the dog's experience, their coping skills, their empowerment. That's how we help them feel better.